Young Lean is one of those artists where if you get him, you get him. And if you don't, you probably really don't. Today we're going to be talking about Stardust, his brand new mixtape featuring FKA Twigs, Tyboy Digital, Drain Gang, and even Skrillex. And by the way, if you're interested in more detailed and high-quality videos analyzing the art and music of Young Lean, you've got to check out my new series that's only on Nebula, where I deep dive on my favorite albums and talk about what makes them so special to me and the music community. To celebrate the release of Stardust, I uploaded 2 episodes covering my favorite albums Lean has ever made. And the thing about making these deep dives on albums is I've tried to do them on YouTube, but they always get taken down or blocked, because to talk about albums, you have to play the music. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the show to Nebula so I can make the videos I really want to make in a way that would never work on YouTube. And you can get access to these episodes and all future episodes, plus my back catalog of exclusive content for just $14.79 for the whole year through our amazing bundle with CuriosityStream. More on that later. Young Lean has never really been mainstream. He's had a few viral moments, but he mostly just has a devoted cult fan base. But there are just as many people out there who see him as annoying and untalented as who love his music. Personally, I've been a devoted fan of Young Lean since maybe 8th or 9th grade, and I'm really loving the new evolution his music is taking. So I was pretty excited for this project, especially after the big single, Trip, had an almost hyperpop sound. Of course, minus all the qualities that make hyperpop corny and hard to listen to. But there was a question in my mind going into this project. Is this going to be more like Stranger, a big conceptual production, or something more informal? And my question was answered pretty much as soon as I saw the track list with way more features than I'm used to on a Lean project. Mostly because the amount of credited features on Young Lean studio albums overall is like, across the years, literally like 6 or 7 features. So looking at that list featuring Tyboy Digital, FKA Twigs, Antoine, Drain Gang, and even 2 Skrillex credits, I was thinking, okay, Young Lean is probably going to go with a little more experimental, contemporary, and even fun sound on this project, which had me pretty excited going in. And Stardust really starts with a bang. Bliss is a groovy song propelled by a bass guitar and rock drums, while FKA Twigs gives an extremely catchy chorus to contrast Lean's vocals. One of my favorite things on this song is actually Lean's flow. He sounds so much more active and lively than on his previous few projects, and it's definitely a big step forward for him as an artist. He even plays with a more emotive delivery on Bliss and Trip, which just felt like a huge breath of fresh air for me. Not that I was getting bored of Lean's trademark apathetic style, but I do understand the artistic and aesthetic reasons behind why he sings and raps that way. But I do think it's nice to hear him humming and singing in higher octaves when he hasn't always done stuff like this before, especially in combination with a more energetic flow. So Bliss was a big hit for me. It sounds very new wave 80s, and Twig's chorus works perfectly next to Lean's muffled staccato rapping. And I liked Trip the same if not more than Bliss. Like I mentioned a bit earlier, I was really excited when Lean dropped the video unannounced because it's just immediately likable. It's pretty much as close as Lean has ever gotten to a song with lighthearted vibes as he raps, "We don't have to fuck all day, let's go outside, let's get some food and coffee, cheat on me, I cheat on you." And meanwhile, the instrumental for this song is full of very mid-2000s synth arpeggios, and it has a very mid-2000s almost emo sound, which when combined with the trap-inspired drums and layered vocals gives it an almost hyperpop feeling. And while I normally don't like hyperpop lyrics or vocals, I think this Young Lean take on that style is really enjoyable and tastefully executed. I especially like the end of the song with a computer voice and the little shimmering melody, and I think it's great to hear Lean going in a more fun, engaging route with his music. If I had to sum up these tracks, I would call them maybe the start to a new era in which Young Lean returns to making music that might be socially acceptable to put on the aux cord with your friends, instead of his tradition the past few years of making songs that are hauntingly beautiful but definitely not intended to be listened to anywhere but the comfort of a dark bedroom or a lonely late-night car ride. Obviously, Stars to the Rainbow is going to get a bunch of attention featuring Tyboy Digital, a member of the cult Swedish hip-hop group Drain Gang, and you know, I honestly love this track. Again, the synths just have a shiny, glistening moonlit sound to them that recalls 2000s emo mixed with heavily distorted drums. We hear Lean's humming and chorus just full of cracks and dissonance, which give the vocals a very intimate and emotional feeling that I think makes it really stand out in my head as one of my favorite tracks on the album. His songwriting has a surreal feeling, but in terms of content, it's nothing I haven't heard before from Lean. You know, drugs, social isolation. I like it, but we've heard it before. Tyboy's performance is good as well, and overall the song is just full of different little moments that come together in a really diverse way. It's definitely not boring or samey. Coming up next was All the Things, which has a very EDM-inspired sound with a pretty limited frequency frequency range to the instrumental until it drops around halfway into a totally decadent, distorted, loud, maximalist banger sound. In the same way, Lean kind of murmurs throughout the intro with this very close to the mic vocal delivery until he completely fades out and comes back in, basically using his voice as a rhythm instrument on top of those sharp, maximal synth melodies with one of the most stylized beats I've ever heard on a young Lean sound. It just absolutely sounds so trance, EDM inspired with the trap drums, high-pitched synths. It kind of has a very nostalgic feel. Towards the latter half of the song, Lean's murmuring fades and he kind of almost struggles through a frail, high-pitched verse to end the track in the same way it began. So truthfully, around this halfway point here, I was really enjoying the mixtape. It's energetic, much more stylized and musically diverse than his last project. Not that Starz was bad, it was an absolutely amazing album with an experimental sound, but this is a lot more varied. It's interesting to hear Lean over the punk sound of Bliss, the hyperpop of Trip, and now EDM on a few tracks too, especially with that emo tone throughout. And I was excited to see Skrillex on a few of these later tracks. I was also a little hesitant, not really knowing what to expect from a pairing like this. What do you think when you hear the name Skrillex? You don't think tastefully minimal, hazy, glitchy instrumentals for young Lean to float on. For me, Skrillex is insane bass drops, tacky visuals, and yeah, we were all around in 2013. We've all heard Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites at one point. That's not what I want to hear in the context of a young Lean song. But I've got to admit, I was pleasantly surprised. On track 6, Lips, Skrillex seems to have taken on a garage-inspired style with echoey, knocking drums and a quiet, understated guitar in the background. Meanwhile, Lean uses his lower register as opposed to the rest of the album so far, basically murmuring vocal fry into the microphone in a way that bizarrely somehow kind of works, even though it really doesn't sound very good. You know, it doesn't work completely, but kinda does. I can see this being a track that young Lean detractors would probably hate, but I enjoyed it and I was pretty surprised to hear Skrillex working on a track as minimal as this. It's definitely one of the quieter and simpler songs on the album. The next track, Paradise Lost, gives off low-budget fantasy movie vibes or something out of a World of Warcraft AMV. It has melancholy plucked strings and sopping wet reverb. Lean uses his totally surreal style of songwriting that I have really come to love. He sings about heaven and devils, Terminator robots, references motifs of dreams and imagination in this very non-specific way. Meanwhile, the featured artist, Swedish rapper Antoine, delivers a verse that's half in Swedish and kind of just floats perfectly on top of the somewhat exotic, vibey instrumental. Paradise Lost is definitely one of my favorite tracks on Stardust. It really fits into that niche of songs that just kind of float, and I think it's going to be a real hit over time as more people listen to it. Next up is Summertime Blood, which, looking at featured artists alone, promises to be a major hit with Lean, Skrillex, Blade, and Echo 2K all coming together on one song. And this song just heavily continues that theme or motif of 2000s emo delivery and sound. It's pretty standard Drain Gang, and you know, at this point they're kind of laying it on heavy. You know, that's just what Echo 2K and Blade sound like. That's their shtick. But this is definitely the one song in the project I would maybe say goes so far as to give me Blood on the Dance Floor vibes, just because of how completely over the top it is with those breathy falsetto vocals and the sharp, choppy synths that give it the same tone as a 2013 EDM remix of a Panic at the Disco song, but kind of like a yassified version. Look, it's not a bad track, but at least right now, I'm not ready to put it on any of my playlists. Finishing the mixtape, I really love the instrumental on Nobody Else. It feels like a kind of desolate, minimal mix of game OSTs and Porter Robinson synths. Meanwhile, Waterfall is a gorgeous closing track that features Lean drenched in reverb, singing behind the main mix. And the penultimate track, Letting It All Go, is another lighthearted and open-feeling track that pretty much focuses on Lean, letting go of his past and looking towards the future. One of the biggest things that sticks out to me about Stardust is the production credits. Like I talked about a few times earlier, a lot of the time there's this incredible feeling of emo-ish EDM influence that you can feel in the music. Whether it's shimmering synth hits that just oscillate from energetic to melancholic and meditative at a moment's notice, or Lean's vocal inflection, or the features from his friends and Drain Gang putting on their most effeminate performances yet, I think he owes this interesting quality to the totally diverse crew of producers that he's working with on this mixtape. So not only is he working with White Armor, Sherm, and Good, who he's been working with for almost 10 years now, but there are quite a few different people credited here. While two people named Saliva and Frederick Okazaki handle most of it, Skrillex did a few tracks, and there are even more producers who worked on Stardust. And of course, Lean's career-long trio did show up, but they kind of played a background role. It was really mostly Frederick and Saliva who did most of these tracks. I actually think this alone makes it one of the more interesting projects in Lean's catalog, at least right now with my recency bias, but it really has a stylistically fresh and interesting sound, which gives it a strong mixtape-based vibe, as in it does sound pretty informal and experimental, but I think that's a shakeup Lean needed to continue his evolution. I don't think it would have been possible without the production from this big and talented team. Overall, Stardust is full to the brim with interesting sounds and new ideas from young Lean. It's definitely one of the biggest musical shakeups and evolutions of his career, and for the most part, all of the new concepts and sounds are executed pretty well. I feel like Young Lean could see a resurgence of popularity or a growth of popularity, and he could find a new community and audience if he keeps pursuing this more modern sound. You know, Stranger and Starz are masterpieces to me, but they're not very social albums. They're very avoidant and strange music. It's deep and beautiful, but I can see that if Lean keeps going with this style, this more lighthearted, energetic way of making music, I think he could reach a new audience in the next year or two. So for me, Stardust by Young Lean is probably an 8 or 8.5 out of 10. I absolutely love hearing him go down a new road with his music since he's always been such a diverse, talented, multifaceted artist. It's nice to see him experimenting with a sound that might be more accessible to a much wider audience. Overall, I would say this mixtape is extremely well executed and again, at least an 8 out of 10 for me, and I think I'm going to be returning to it probably all summer. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in more detailed videos talking about Young Lean and his incredible discography, you've got to check out this video's companion series, which is only available on Nebula. I love doing deep dives on albums. It's one of my favorite ways to make videos. I can talk about the production and songwriting and my own personal connection to these masterpieces of music, but over the last year, I've just stopped doing it because invariably, if you want to make a good video about an album, you have to play snippets of that album and YouTube just doesn't let you do that without blocking videos worldwide. So what I did was create a Nebula exclusive series where I can make the videos I really want to make, the way I know you'll enjoy them the most. And of course, to celebrate the launch of this series, I uploaded 2 videos deep diving on my favorite Young Lean records, Stranger and Unknown Memory. And later this week, I'll also be uploading a closer look and deep dive into Tyler the Creator's Call Me If You Get Lost, and I think you'll love that too. I really do think that my audience will love these videos, and it's not the type of content I could ever make on YouTube. But I also want to say, Nebula isn't just me. There are over 130 other creators uploading videos on Nebula as well. Nebula is home to and owned by many amazing YouTubers like Polyphonic, Middle 8, FD Signifier, MKPHD, Legal Eagle, Wendover Productions, and over 130 more. We founded the platform for creative freedom away from the limitations of YouTube, and I upload exclusive cuts of almost every video I make to Nebula with either behind-the-scenes tutorials, extra footage from the main video, or, like I'm doing now, an entirely separate companion series that enhances the main content but also stands by itself. Now, I also have to thank CuriosityStream, this video's sponsor, for bundling their amazing service with thousands of high-quality documentaries about science, history, culture, music, and more, including their brand new documentary about Mr. Beast tells the story of how he became the biggest YouTuber of all time through his love for helping people and making videos. So right now, you can get Nebula for free, included with CuriosityStream, which is 26% off at just $14.79 for an entire year's membership. So go check out my brand new series. So go check out my brand new companion series where I'm deep diving into my favorite albums of all time and support my mission in continuing to make some of the highest quality music commentary on the internet. That's curiositystream.com/Volksgeist. That's curiositystream.com/Volksy for Nebula plus CuriosityStream for $14.79 for the entire year. Don't forget that clicking the link really helps out my channel and helps me continue to make the highest quality music commentary on the internet.